Doing an audio check, so this is not the highlight of the day. Test, check, test. Hello, 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 hello. Sue, are you here? Okay, then we can start. Should we start? Ready? Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the celebration of Kevin. My name is Bill Henderson. I worked with Kevin a decade ago, and I had a great opportunity in the last couple of weeks to carry messages from a variety of students and read them to Kevin. I'd like to first of all start off by introducing, of course, Karen, Patrick, and Katie, Kevin's lovely family. What we're going to do today is we're going to have a short time in here where we're going to listen to some people tell some wonderful stories about Kevin and how he's impacted our world. And we're going to laugh, because one thing you do need to know is if anybody asks where you were today, don't tell them you were here, because Kevin doesn't want you to be here. This is a secret. This is a surprise. Kevin said to me when a good friend of ours retired, and I think Deb said he was actually here, Rudy. When Rudy Meyer retired, oh, there he is over there. I got to roast Rudy off in his retirement, and Kevin said to me, "Oh, you have to do that when I retire." Well, unfortunately, Kevin decided not to retire, and so when he asked if I would speak on behalf of the staff, I said, "Well, maybe we'll do more than that. Maybe I'll roast you." And he said, "Oh, bastard." So, while we are definitely going to be sad over the next half hour or so, we have some things planned that hopefully will lighten the moment. As I say, Kevin is an amazing person. For those of you who have read some of the postings on the Facebook page, the outpouring that's coming from his students, his friends, his neighbors. We're obviously talking about a very unique man, and so as a result, we have to have a very unique send-off, because we're here today to celebrate Kevin. And say goodbye to Kevin, because he has decided he didn't want to come to this party, and he's decided he wanted to go somewhere else today. Maybe he's watching the football game. And just so you know, we are live streaming the football game in the men's washroom. If you want to watch it, you have to go to stall number 2. All right, so as I say, we're going to have a little bit of time in here. If you didn't get a chance to sign the guest book, please sign it before you leave, and we have this building for a while. So it's not like after this part of the session is over, we don't want you to leave. We want you to sit and mingle. Obviously, this is one of those times when we get together with people we haven't seen for a long time. For all the wrong reasons we're together, but we are together. And Kevin always celebrated the fact that when you get together with people, you talk to them. And we'll be talking more about that later on. So please don't just get up and run out at the end of it all. Hang around. There's food coming out. There's coffee and tea, and a few other things as well. Okay, so one of the things about Kevin that you may or may not know, because today is going to be a bit of a discovery. When I said to Karen, "Do you want me to do this?" Because I got a reputation. And she said, yes, I think I do. I'm not sure where to start, and so I said, okay, fine, then I'll just run with it. I'm going to go off mic from time to time, so I'm retired now, so I don't always use my teacher voice. As you can tell, I don't use a teacher haircut anymore.
Great hair.
And that's all my hair too. Okay, so one of the things that, hang on here.
Be careful of that other guitar.
There's other guitar over here. Now, we're not allowed to touch this guitar here. One of the things you may not know about Kevin is Kevin collected guitars. He collected guitars like he collected printers, like he collected computers. It's not that he didn't know how to use them. He probably did, but I've known Kevin for 20 years. And I saw him pick up a guitar once and strum. Wasn't that bad. And I said to Kevin, okay, one time you're going to have to teach me how to play guitar. And so he didn't. And so I got this guitar that was given to me about 40 years ago. It was down in the basement, and I downloaded an app so I could tune it, and then I guitar. So we wrote this little song here, and let's just see if I can. Hang on, that's right. I never did learn how to play guitar. So I could keep it here as a stand-in, but instead we have our hidden guitarist over on the side. So first of all, let me introduce Chris Werner. I think he's over there. Chris, do you want to just strum a tune? You're supposed to be on guitar. This is also our technical rehearsal. Musicians are hard to organize. Chris comes to us, he just flew in from Chilliwack. He had a Christmas concert this morning and he was performing on. So unfortunately, the soloist couldn't make it because she has another appointment. So this is Chris on the guitar, so he's got to play as if I was playing. And then later on in this event, we're going to have an open mic. So if anybody wants to come up and talk about Kevin. Now, one thing that happens from time to time, when people start talking, is they can sometimes talk for a long time, which we want you to talk. We want you to express your emotions. But, you know, it's hard for other people. We've got 300 people in a hot room sitting, and if you're talking a long time, then we're going to get Mr. DJ Temple to DJ.
Hi.
Could you plug in your guitar and give us your exit song? So just like the Oscars, if you're talking too long, we're gonna play you off the stage. But you'll notice that DJ is hooking up the electric guitar. Kevin was more into the acoustical. He was in fact pretty analog kind of guy. So when DJ starts playing the Kevin song, the Shop Out Back song, when you hear the electric guitar, you know you're talking too long. And when the DJ starts playing, he's going to bite me off the stage as well. So I think I'm going to just, instead of sitting there like some monkey on the stage, I'm going to get now Chris to go back onto acoustical guitar so that we can actually start the show. Because I think we've done enough treading water because we've had to fill a little bit of time just for the last people to get in. So let's get going. So we're going to sing a little song here. You might recognize it. It's a song about Kevin, and I call the song Kevin's Shop Out Back. Now we'll wait for it to come around again, so those of you who may know the song, we're stealing this song, of course, from Arlo Guthrie and Alice's Restaurant, but we had to pick a song that was acoustical, a song that was sort of of the era, a song from the 60s and kind of of the 70s, which is when Kevin was at his peak. Now, as you know, the song is about Kevin, and the song is about Kevin's, well, it's actually, the song is called Kevin's Shop Out Back, and it goes something like this. Wait for it. You can get anything you want at Kevin's Shop Out Back. You can get anything you want at Kevin Lloyd's Shop Out Back. Well, just walk right in, it's around the back. Grab a cup of coffee and have a chat. Oh, you can get anything you want at Kevin's Shop Out Back. So the words are pretty easy. And as we go on throughout the event, the song is going to be coming up. And so as you start practicing and thinking in your mind, so all of those of you who are like my age, 40, or older, you're going to recognize that song. That was for Let You Retire When You're 40. I was good. So when that song comes around again, and you feel like singing, just remember the words. You can get anything you want at Kevin's Shop Out Back. You can get anything you want at Kevin's Shop Out Back. Just walk right in, walk right in, it's around the back, grab a cup of coffee, and have a chat. Because that's what Kevin did a lot of. But also, we got to talk about Kevin, and I want to see how long Chris can actually keep going with it. As I was talking to him in our official technical rehearsal 30 minutes ago, I said, you're going to be doing this for about 45 minutes. I suggested he may want to record it and play the loop over and over again, but he didn't have time, so he has to sit there and play it over and over again. So as we start looking at Kevin and we start trying to understand who this man Kevin is, we got to peel back the layers of Kevin. And so we're going to start at the beginning. Let's start with the family. Let's start with some members of the family coming up and talking a little bit about Kevin and Kevin's family. So we're going to start off with Kevin's brother-in-law, Mr. Derek Hill. And we'll ask Derek to come up and say a few words on behalf of the Lloyd family.
Thank you. Hopefully I don't get played off. I've done this a number of times for a number of people. It never gets easy. My name is Derek Hill, and I'm Karen's older brother. Thus, through an accident of birth, I had the privilege and honor of being Kevin's brother-in-law, and uncle to Kevin's children, Patrick and Katie. I think that, like all of us, I'd like to think that I had a positive impact on the lives of those around me. I think we'd all like to know that we've raised our children well, that we've helped a neighbor or a friend through a hard point in their lives, that we've had a good, productive life. If we're lucky, we can hope to influence for the better a few dozen people. But Kevin, both because of his chosen profession and more importantly, because of who he was, had a hugely positive impact on the lives of literally hundreds of people. Over the past few days, I've taken a couple of hours to read 100 or more letters and Facebook entries that people have sent with their fond remembrances of Kevin, and more often than not, their thanks for Kevin being in their lives. I know that each and every letter to Kevin was read to him, and that they were a great comfort to him and to his family. To each and every one of those writers, I want to sincerely say thank you. On behalf of my sister, I'd like to thank all the people whose help and support enabled the family to make it through these last few hard weeks. Karen especially wants to thank Katie and Patrick, who gave unstintedly and unreservedly to Kevin 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. She wants to thank Paul and Anna Mattia for being at Kevin's side and an invaluable help to her. Also, thank you, Sue, for all your support, and to Grace for taking on the chore of providing so many meals for the family. Finally, a huge, huge thank you to Bill for taking the job of arranging the celebration of Kevin's life. Thank you can only start to express the emotions and appreciation to the team, and you know who you are, that came together to support Karen, Patrick, and Katie. Thank you for all your help. Kevin had a positive impact on all our lives, and we will always remember him. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. And now we're going to ask upon Ron Featherstone. Ron is Kevin's brother-in-law, I believe, yes? Yes. I'm starting to understand the family.
Now I may get played off. For the people who know me, the one talent I seem to have in life is making a short story very long. But this one today is, of course, a very important one for all of us. And on behalf of Kevin's sister, Una, and the entire Featherstone family, I'd like to thank all of you for being here today. It's a tribute to Kevin and the type of man he was. But more importantly, it's a comfort to us, his family. This morning, seeking inspiration in one line, I came across something that Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote. And I think it is appropriate to read now. And part of what he said is that it is not the length of life, but it's the depth. And yesterday, spent a lot of time with my family, and we sat around and focused on Kevin and his life and what it means to us. And really our objective was to share with you what he meant to us, with the hope that it will add to the depth that you measure him with. So immediately, we were throwing words around the table like unconditional love, caring, generous, principled, and a shameless glutton for smarties. Of course, anybody who spent any time with Kevin immediately got his sense of humor, and was one of the characteristics that oftentimes you'll hear people say, Kevin, his sense of humor, we got pranked by Kevin, it was kind of a thing of honor. But when Patrick was a baby and learning to speak, he had a hard time pronouncing Catherine's name. So like the good father he was, he explained to Patrick, all you have to say, Patrick, is caca. So just in that little fatherly advice, I think it encapsulates one of the things that we all very much like about him. My kids, in their formative years, basically grew up with Kevin. It was before he met Karen and became domesticated. And they remember rides with Uncle Kevin in the pickup truck. The windows open, probably cigarette smoking rolling out, but the Rolling Stones blaring on the stereo. And, you know, for small children, life didn't get much better. And spending time with Uncle Kevin. Jonathan, when he was a young lad, you know, was gifted with his own personal ride on a CN locomotive. Was introduced to Gordon Lightfoot as the astounding musician that Kevin loved. And I didn't produce this quote, but it came out in their conversation as little kids before domestication, that he was the bachelor uncle who was Steve McQueen cool. Some of you younger folks may have to Google Steve McQueen, but I think once you do, you'll agree with that early impression that they had of their Uncle Kevin. At special occasions, he was, the only word I can think of is sacrosanct. If Kevin wasn't there for a birthday or for Christmas, it was unholy. It wasn't complete. He needed to be there. We wanted him there. Emily shared a memory of, it may have been her 9th or 10th birthday, and Kevin, through some kind of mismanagement of his time, got the day wrong. And he was expecting to show up the following day, and he missed Emily's birthday. And that night, being tucked into bed, tears rolling down her cheek, she said, it's not a birthday without Uncle Kevin, right? So we had a big, big impact. The way he made it up to her, she was at her swimming lesson the next day down at the public pool, and all of a sudden he shows up and he's on the other side of the fence, and he's making this magnanimous public apology to a little 9-year-old girl. Emily Rose, I love you, happy birthday. His gift giving to my children was legendary. He was always the kind of uncle who would confer with Una, what do the kids want, what do they need, So he gifted them like brilliant gifts of guitars, musical instruments. Just it was that a significant gift always from Uncle Kevin. Invariably, they'd come wrapped in newspaper and electrician's tape, boxes within boxes within boxes, stuffing. So by the time that Catherine, one of her early birthdays, got to the bottom of her box, you have to appreciate this little prim and proper child finds at the bottom of all this mess a Crown Royal bag full of jelly beans and a brand new pair of underwear. with little ducks on it. Now, she thought she was being pranked, but he was able to convince her that he thought so much of her that he gave her this very special gift. And once he had her convinced, he maneuvered her outside, and there in the driveway was a brand new bike. It's just the kind of guy he was. We talked about how selfless he was, right? And how generous he was, in giving his time. See, I'm the kind of brother-in-law who probably doesn't tell the difference very well between a Robertson screwdriver and a Phillips. Not exactly the prototypical ideal guy with Mr. Fix-It in the family. And numerous times, you know, I remember him sprawled on his back in our gravel driveway, emergency patching up one of my neglected vehicles, right? Even after his diagnosis, you know, he had a heart-to-heart with Emily and expressed his disappointment that he wouldn't be here in the years to come to be part of Liam's life, Emily's son. I hope you're starting to get a bit of a picture in terms of how much he meant to us and how we measured the man. I mean, he had tremendous character, I think all of you will agree. Attributes that we rarely see in others, but when we do, we aspire somehow to be like that. And a couple of stories that Una shared. When she was 15 years old, Kevin would have been 17. They were spending the night at the Pacific Coliseum lining up to get Rolling Stones tickets. And Kevin was gracious enough to include not only his 15-year-old sister, but her best friend. Now, he exhorted them. He reminded them, it's going to be cold there. Make sure you bring your sleeping bag. We're going to be out all night. Listen to me. Bring your sleeping bag. Well, Una's friend showed up without her sleeping bag. And Kevin, the character of a 17-year-old man, boy, really, gave his sleeping bag to Una's friend. He's the guy who rattled his teeth and shivered all night. When he worked on the railway, he worked for CN, as many of you know. CP Rail was on strike and being battered in the negotiations, and he, of course, was very supportive. He was, you know, a member of the Brotherhood. But, you know, he took it further, and while those guys were on strike, he gave half of his paycheck to their strike time until that strike was settled. Kind of character that we don't often bump into. Una told a story that I've entitled Tender Sentiments. Now, you have to appreciate Kevin honed his pranking skills on Una. Right? He became very adept at pranking. But he still had the tenderness as a young boy, and her a young girl, to bend a small sapling tree that had a bird's nest in it so his little sister could see the robin's eggs. That's, those are the kinds of things that we saw it was in him at a young age, right? And I think made him very, very unique. As a family, we remember his joy at becoming a father, not once but twice. And my children share in that memory of that joy, that happiness. And just one more, I think maybe, I don't know if it was the first time he pranked you, Una, but certainly one that makes me think of his beguiling smile. As a young child, he had Una convinced that sugar was an appropriate replacement for pixie dust, and that if she threw the sugar, she could fly off her bed. And she believed him. So you can imagine the outcome. Recently, I'm sure I'm going to be played off the stage here, and I am wrapping up. But recently, I was actually on a television program, and it was actually an homage to a teacher. And it was said that people never really die. They live on in our memories. And he will live on in all of our memories in various ways. But for me and for my family, he will forever be in our memories and in our heart, and we'll remember him as he was. He was a good man, and actually he was a really good man who lived well and was well loved. And I'll leave you with those thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. So we're starting to see the image of Kevin. He's not just the person you thought. He has so many secrets that are also wonderful. They go back to a 17-year-old getting a bike. You know, there's so many stories like this that are going to come up, I think, throughout the afternoon of Kevin, and just, I received an email this morning from one person who wanted to be here. I'm just going to jump into this one right now because it fits in, I think. If I can remember it first. Well, I guess not. I'll read it later. Mr. Analog. This one comes from a teacher who couldn't make it here today, but it's so much of what Kevin is. She says, Kevin would stroll into the Yale Counseling Center. Kevin worked at Bateman. Kevin would stroll into the Yale Counseling Center after school every few months, until the last year, I'd say, unannounced, of course, and kibitz and laugh with Lauren and I about this and that, gossip mostly, if I'm honest. And what fun that was. You know, just that random dropping in on the way home. I mean, that's the kind of guy Kevin was. And there's so many aspects of Kevin, stand by Doug, there's so many aspects of Kevin that as we peel back these layers, I wanted to play a song here. It was a song that was recommended by a family member. And when you listen to the song, you will cry. I know that because I listen to the song every day before and after I went to Kevin's house in the last week. I was very, very honored that I got to read letters that students and teachers produced, and Kevin allowed me to come inside and read these stories to him. So I've seen so many amazing stories and whatnot, but as I say, everything to me really crystallized in this one beautiful song. A little background on the song, when it was actually, if I may, when Katie mentioned the title of the song, I went home that night, and I thought about it a lot, and I waited and was ready, thinking, okay, we're going to bring the song in, and then last Friday, Kevin decided it was time to leave. So I sent an email to the person who wrote the song, and I said, a really good friend of mine just passed away. What would it take to get you to come and play the song? Unfortunately, I never heard back from him. I was excited, though, when Neil Young was in Vancouver on the weekend, because I thought, maybe, just maybe. But I tried, so sorry, we couldn't get Neil Young. So instead, this is Kevin's guitar here. I'm not going to put it up here because I don't want it to fall. I don't have a stage to put it on. But as you listen to the words of the song, Neil's talking about a guitar, but he's kind of talking about Kevin.
this old guitar. This old guitar has got some breaks, but it never searched for gold. I can't be blamed for my mistakes. It only does what it's told. It's been a messenger in times of trouble. In times of hope and fear, when I get drunk and seeing double, it jumps behind the wheel and steers. This old guitar ain't mine to keep. It's mine to play for a while. This old guitar ain't mine to keep. It's only mine for a while. This old guitar. 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 This old guitar.
Sorry about the static on that one, folks. It takes away the sadness when you have technical difficulties. Okay, so Kevin was a collector. He also seemed to want to collect careers. Most of us in this room, of course, know him as a teacher, but before he was a teacher, before he created a beautiful family, he did this other thing that nobody knows anything about. And when I asked the gentleman, tell us a little bit about Kevin and CN days, they said, what goes on in CN stays. We had a couple speakers lined up. Unfortunately, Faye Morrison, who is up in, I believe, 100 Mile House. Loon Lake, sorry, she's up in Loon Lake, and she wasn't able to make it down because of the cold weather. And so Mr. Jim Garnis, I believe, is here today, and he is going to tell us all a little bit about those mysterious days when Kevin was on the railroad. And why did he leave the railroad? Why did he start the railroad? Jim.
Thank you very much. As you know, Kevin was ill for quite some time, and rumors, of course, spread like wildfire. And being the CN group, we were kind of out of the loop of what Kevin was. But about a week or so ago, Karen called and asked if I would, told me what was happening when Kevin was getting close to the end, and asked if I would say a few words on behalf of the people at CN. Well, you know, I drove down here today and I said to myself, I can't believe I'm going to a celebration of life for Kevin Lloyd, because this man was so full of life. He was so full of life, it was unbelievable. But getting back to the CN days, Kevin was, as his brother-in-law said, a master at pulling pranks. And he was a prankster like you wouldn't believe. And I don't think there's anybody at CN who was not in his sights. He had all these pranks, and he didn't only just pull a prank, like I'm sure he thought about it for a long time, because they were masterful. I'll only give you one. Kevin one day decided he was going to get all the mechanical staff in an uproar. So, nobody knew about it. He went in the office, he got a CN letterhead, and he typed up a letter on this letterhead saying that effective certain date, all the mechanical staff was going to have to be retested in their classifications. And you can imagine the fiasco that that was. And he let it go for about a week. And everybody was, you know, you could see the groups in the corner. And of course, Kevin he's watching all this at the side of his eye, just chuckling his head off. Because nobody knew he was responsible. And then he let it, like I say, for about a week, and then he told all the guys one day, it's not true. I just made it all up. Well, they wanted to kill him. But that's the type of guy Kevin was. You know, he was full of fun and laughter, and it's so hard to believe that he's gone. I just can't believe it. But yeah, he was a hell of a nice guy, and I'm sure he's going to be sadly missed. Thank you.
So one of the common threads that we've been hearing about here is pranks. And there were some masterful pranks indeed. One little known fact, Kevin and I kind of shared a little bit of love of the prank. And we outdid each other who could get stationery from the higher office. Like it was great when one of our boss went up to the board office, and that was a good excuse to go in. And there's nothing quite like walking into the superintendent's office and just stealing some letterhead. Just because you never know when you're going to use it. So somewhere in Kevin's collection, I know we have letterheads on file for, we never got the Premier's office, but we did get the Minister of Education's letter. We were standing by, and I have a feeling that Matt Jones is going to get a letter from the Minister of Education when he retires in a couple of years. But I'm just saying that. Those are some pranks that were out there. So Kevin was growing up. He was still pranking, so that's good. Because if you're pranking, then you're not growing up. And so that part we kept okay with Kevin. But something happened at the CN. He told me one time it was something to do with the fact that you could actually climb inside the engines that he wasn't really comfortable with. You know, it's one thing to be working on a motor, but it's another thing to actually be the piston. You know, and it was also something I think about cold weather. No offense to the guys out there who work so hard in the cold, lousy weather, you know, keeping the trains going, because we all use trains every day now. Sorry. So Kevin saw an opportunity, and he sort of broke out of what he was doing, whatever it was, because we still don't really know. I think we know he was a mechanic. Whether he actually worked at the CN, we're not sure about. We know about pranking. That's all we've nailed down so far about this man, pranking. He's a good guy and he pranks. But he decided it was time to get a little bit smarter, or sideways smarter, or try something a little bit different. And so he decided it would be time to build on his career and go to university, to a place that those of us who are shop teachers will remember, the farm. And it was at the farm that he met Paul. And Paul became his best friend, and we're going to ask Paul to come up now and say a few words about Kevin. Is that, you want more of an introduction? I forgot to write it out on a piece of paper. And you notice this is how he gets dressed when he visits Kevin.
Have no fear, Lloyd is here. Those words say a lot about the kind of person Kevin was. He was always willing to help. He could always be counted on to be there, and he could sure solve problems. I met Kevin at BCIT, or the farm, in 1991, where we were training to be tech ed teachers. We bonded in the electronics shop, building computer interfaces and listening to classic rock and stories of life in the 60s and 70s, an era that I envied and that Kevin lived through. He got to see Led Zeppelin. He also shared a lot of great stories of work at the railway. He always had a funny story to tell, to turn any experience into a teachable moment. Like the time that I had all the wires just stuffed into my electronics project. He looked at it and then told me a story of when he was working with an electrician at the railway, and when they opened up a panel box and saw a mess of wires. The electrician shook his head in disgust and just said, "Spaghetti." I remember that story every time I'm working with wiring and to keep it neat and tidy. His expertise in the technical world was apparent early on. When he was an apprentice, he was working with Rocco Sabatini, who would say to him in his perfect Italian English, "Kevin, you will make a good machinista." Little did Rocco know that, "Kevin, you also make a good teacher too." Anytime I needed help with anything, Kevin was there. I had to create a small engines course, but didn't know much about them. So I spent 2 weeks with him during the summer holidays, and he taught me how to repair them and helped create teaching materials for the course. He welcomed me into his home and into his family. He would ask when I was coming over, would always extend an invitation for New Year's, Sunday dinner, do some renos, or just come by for a visit. His generosity and selflessness knew no bounds, and he would go to any lengths for people, whether they needed something big, or whether it was just the little things that he would do to make you feel special. He would make sure that there was Guinness for me. And if there wasn't, he would go and get some. He didn't just offer what he had in the fridge, like his Sleeman's, but he would insist on going all the way to the cold beer and wine store so that I could have Guinness. He also knew that I liked Coke over Pepsi, so he would never ever dream of giving me a Pepsi. That's just the kind of guy he was. But Kevin, being Kevin, he would also make sure to try to get a Pepsi reaction out of me first before giving me a Coke. He was always looking for an opportunity to see if he could get someone to bite. Kevin was quick to offer help to anyone who needed it. And his main priority was taking care of his family. He would drop whatever he was doing and lend a hand. Whether Karen needed something fixed around the house, or Patrick needed his computer or car fixed, or Katie needed a hutch built for a rabbit, or help creating a garden, Kevin took care of it. Even when Kevin found out he was sick, his priority didn't change. In fact, it became even stronger. He devoted all his energy and time to making sure that his family was going to be well taken care of after he was gone. Although there are many words to describe you, Kevin, the one that stands out for me is class. You are pure class. Thank you for making all our lives that much better. So, in closing, Kev, I don't care what all your friends say about you. You're a good guy.
Awesome guy indeed. So Kevin, upon graduation, he had a couple things I guess he wanted to do as far as getting jobs. He didn't want to go across the bridge, which was good for us because Abbotsford's this side of the bridge. And so he applied for Abbotsford for a variety of reasons, and he was hired. And that changed so many lives in this room because of one person being brought into an organization. I'd like to bring up now Mr. Steve Carlton. Oh, just a second before I do that, I was just handed this piece of paper. Apparently, a blue pickup truck, license number 2102 JV. 2102 JV, does anybody, your lights are on?
Thank you.
Thank you. You see, this is what happens. All of the pranks are already preloaded. And so Kevin obviously told a few people, get ready, you're going to have your lights left on. Because as when we get to the students, we'll be talking about lights left on all over the place. There's something there that the kids will be explaining, I'm sure. So anyways, as I started to say, let's bring up Steve to talk about bringing Kevin into Robert Bateman Secondary and the Abbotsford School District.
The five of you clapped. Apparently I didn't make you mad at some point. Thank you. Thanks, Bill. This is what we look like when Kevin came to Abbotsford School District, and when Kevin came to Bateman, I was the principal, and this is kind of what we looked like in the mid-90s. So I put this on today in memory and honor of Kevin. This really is a fixer-upper, and it's why Febreze was invented, I think. But I feel right at home, and it's great to have some time with Kevin. And such an honor to work with Kevin when he came to Bateman. Shortly after the school was open, he was our second shop teacher, if you will. Rudy Meyer, where's Rudy's out there? Rudy Hazard is out there. Rudy set the standard for mechanics at Robert Bateman Secondary School, and Kevin fit right in beautifully. He was keen and gifted. He was that new teacher, though his experience, but he came with all of that energy and enthusiasm. Of course, we gave him a teaching load that would sink a ship. Science and Technology 11, of course, that no one else wanted. Kevin, you're new here. You can have Science and Tech 11. Of course, every auto course, welding course, tech course you can imagine. We were a small school, and Kevin inherited it all. Well, you know Kevin, he accepted every challenge gracefully, and rarely came to the office to complain, rarely. He accepted his role on the team, and he knew, right from day one, he knew that some of his colleagues in other parts of the building were helping those kids who needed 1% more to get an entrance scholarship at university. And he also knew that some of his kids couldn't get out of bed in the morning to face a day at school. He was part of the team, and he knew which part of the team he played for. We had really high hopes for the emergence of technology programs in the early and mid-90s when the school was open. Bill Henderson would understate it, but I can only tell you that Robert Bateman Secondary School really was the envy of the province in terms of its construction, its design, and the philosophy behind it. If you ever have had the chance to go into the shop areas, it was integrated long before integrated became the way to do business. And so in that vein, a great deal of thought went in by Bill and others into designing a flexible learning and working space where design, problem solving, and creation were infused into the curriculum for every child. Kevin's shop was very, very well equipped by the standards in those days, and Kevin made the most of it, including your anvil, Rudy, that you left. He made the most of everything. His automotive course quickly became the most popular amongst the students.
many of whom had very little interest in cars. And what many of them signed up for were simply to be in Kevin's class and to, as they said, hang out with Lloyd. But here are some of the words as I read through the string of comments from kids on Facebook. Facebook really is a miracle to me. I'm new to it. I have 13 friends now. And I actually posted something, which was kind of new. I posted something and I showed my wife and she said, look, 78 people liked it. I said, when I was in Bateman, I said there weren't a dozen people like anything I did. So, kind of liking this Facebook thing. But the kids on Facebook really kind of captured some of the Lloydisms, right? One girl, I'll just use first names. Alita said, you're such a laugh and knew exactly how to deal with us crazy teenagers. Thank you for understanding our antics and giving us girls the privilege to take a walk in class when we couldn't focus one more minute on tires, oil changes, and welding. Keith said, the lessons I learned in your class and the escape you offered me from a world that sometimes could be just a little bit too heavy to shoulder was something I will always appreciate. Haley said, you always saw the best in people, even when some of us frustrated you to no end. Chris said, sorry for the time when I was bleeding the brakes on a car and I accidentally hit the brake pedal. I sprayed brake fluid all over you. You laughed it off and called me a bonehead. And you pulled some change from your pocket and took me to the vending machine for a snack. Taylor says, sorry for breaking the spot welder in class one day. You just laughed and said, no worries, here's some change. Go get something from the vending machine. Mike, who's in the room, maybe some of the others are in the room as well, but Mike said you were quick to smile and tease, but never to judge. You understood hands-on people like me. You were never just another face amongst a crowd of faces. You knew me, and you made a point of making my day better. Usually, that was with Jolly Ranchers and the vending machine. Now, some of you may be puzzled by the vending machine. And it's a bit of a sore point with some. However, it was his classroom management strategy on one hand. On the other hand, it didn't bother me that he had his kids down at the candy machines. Actually, Kevin and I had an understanding. You see, the school received a 40% kickback in gross sales on the vending machines. So at the business end of things, and every year, I would take the proceeds from that vending machine and I would buy new booties for Kevin's racing car. So everyone was a winner. It's just business. And you kids thought, never mind. Funny too that not one of the students in the thread complimented Kevin for having that well-equipped and beautifully maintained shop. Each of the compliments for Kevin was for reaching them on a personal level and for taking his work, but not himself, seriously. I think the highest compliment any one of the kids online paid was this. When Taylor says, yours was the only class I hated skipping. Even Kevin Lloyd couldn't cure skipping, but Taylor owns it. So what do the kids love about Kevin? They love being burned or seeing other people burn when he sent them on excursions to other teachers looking for the brass or the wooden magnet, only to return red-faced. Kids liked it when you put the Jesus fish on Mr. Jones' truck and waited to see how long it would take for Jones to come down and retaliate. Kids liked it when you inspired them and helped them get into trades. Kids liked that there was coffee made and sugar in the tool chest. And Kevin worked very closely with the vice principals. You could well imagine that some of his clients had need of encouragement at the other end. And administrators, I checked with a few of them, and they told me that they really appreciated Kevin's tough love approach with a firm and accountable hand, but most of all, Kevin's gentle heart. And safe to say that Kevin never quit on a kid when some of the kids had already quit on themselves. That was Kevin. One of the vice principals offers up that he was the heart and soul of Robert Bateman. He knew every kid's name, every kid's story, and had a personal connection with more than just those in his class. If I, the vice principal, wanted to know what was going on in the school and going on with the kids, I went to Lloyd. He was the go-to. He was my guy. Another teacher offers up that there'll never be another Kevin. He'll be missed and remembered always. He took the time to make others feel important, and really, there's no other quality that surpasses that. And so to Karen and Pat and Katie, I hope you understand what a great man this guy was and how many lives he impacted for the better. Greatness is not about money or power, but rather the circle of influence and the good you leave behind. And in the language of his chosen profession, Kevin, for all of those things, gets an A+, ladies and gentlemen, an A+.
Now, we are still looking for the brass magnet. It is out there. We have the wood magnet, so it has been found. This is the low-tech version of the wood magnet. Don't plug that in around the lumberyard. All the wood will just be flying out. And this one, we believe, was the high-tech version of the wood magnet. It's got formulas on it. That makes it high-tech. Some of the pranks had to be planned in advance. Some of the pranks had to involve other people. The board stretcher is one that pops to mind. When you're working in a shop, as one student wrote in one of the letters, there must have been some kind of crazy deal going on. All of the bad kids, all of the troublemakers, let's send them to Lloyd's room and give them a torch. You know, we have special ed teachers who have 6 kids at a time, and then we have Kevin who has 30, and give them a torch. And maybe a few other weapons of mass destruction. You guys, why don't you come on in? There's room over here at the wall if you want, so we can get everybody in. Sorry, I didn't realize you were ganging up or piling up over there again. Oh, and there's some seats right up here too. There's chairs right up at the front. Oh, there's even more bodies up there than we thought. Yeah, come on, push everybody in. Just let people take seats here. As they're taking their seats, come on, don't be shy. Come on, there's chairs up front here. There you go. So if you're working in an environment like that, you can imagine if somebody's bleeding the brakes and you get a shot of brake fluid in your face, you're kind of frustrated. Kevin never lost his cool. Instead, he would reach into his pocket, give him some change, and say, go to the vending machine. If you did something wrong and you cut a piece of wood in the wood shop, for example, too short, well, you don't insult the kid and make fun of him. Instead, you really do it on a grand scale, and you send him for the board stretcher. The board stretcher started out being a mythical thing until it got into the hands of Kevin. And then the board stretcher started taking on a new dimension because all of a sudden we had teachers strategically located around the school with various pieces of logging equipment. And so kids would be going around the school trying to get the board stretcher for Mr. Lloyd, and they'd go up to Mr. Jones' room and he'd have a chain and he'd give him the chain. This poor kid is walking around the school. I guarantee you that young child has learned measure twice, cut once. You know, and when you send a kid to Doug Earl to get a cup of oxygen because you're having trouble starting the engine. And when the kid comes back and you say, well, didn't Mr. Earl explain you have to keep the cup upside down? Back you go. The second time when you come down, well, we don't need it anymore because we realized there was oxygen in the air. And there was a lot of other little pranks along the way that you could do, because there was times when, there was one that I remember very fondly. It was called the paper bomb. And we only did it twice, but it really registered for 3 kids, because Kevin was, he had a bad headache that day, and I had a spare, I just left my kids on autopilot, like I usually did. And I went over to the auto shop, and there was Kevin. He seemed like a bad, it didn't seem quite right, so I said, let me take the class for you. What are you doing? He said, we're talking about the theory of carburation. I said, oh, okay, atomization of fuel, I understand that. So we started off comparing solid fuel. You know, here you have a cup of gas, if you throw a match in it, it'll burn, but it won't burn fast. If you pour the gas on the table, it'll burn faster. If you atomize the gas, and you fill the room with gas vapor, oh, it'll burn fast. So we don't want to use gas, so we're going to use paper. So we started off with a solid piece of paper rolled up in a tight ball, and it wouldn't light on fire. Then we had a full sheet of paper, and it burned pretty quick. And being in the auto shop, you can play with fire. And then I took another piece of paper and I shredded it into tiny little pieces, and as I'm explaining to them, I'm atomizing the paper, getting ready for a real big bomb. Of course, Kevin's headache is feeling a little bit better now, and he's in the back of the shop with a big huge hammer and a big huge piece of steel. And so as I put the match to the paper bomb, the Meister in the background, he just lets out with a big huge bang, and all the kids. So now I think that everybody here also understands how you can atomize fuel, and it will burn faster. You can use that at the CNR if you drive. So the vibe that was happening at Bateman was really, really fun. Let's bring up Nicole Calder to also talk about the impact Kevin had on teachers, because this way we can get some more. There we go. You okay? All right.
Hi, I'm Nicole, and I teach French, so you can imagine that our worlds didn't really cross over that often. But actually they did. Like many people, we all have different sides and many faces, and depending on the relationship you have with people, and I knew Kevin, for 18 years. And there was a lot of things that I didn't know about Kevin. I didn't know his favorite color, I didn't know his favorite food, I didn't know if he had a dog growing up. Thank you, I now know that he likes Lehman's. I didn't know his favorite beer until today. I didn't know his all-time favorite car, what his house looks like, but I did know the kind of man he was, and yes, he was a prankster, and yes, teachers were not immune. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I know that he loved his family deeply, and he always spoke with love about Karen. He always talked about how proud he was of his children, and I know that he cared about his students. Kevin invested himself in his profession fully and completely. His true calling was teaching, and he always did what was best for kids because they are at the heart of what we do. And he was a man of honor. He prided himself on a job well done, and although his shop wasn't as always clean and organized as he would have liked, it was because he focused on keeping the people in his shop on track and not so much his stuff. The course that he taught was just the way that he cooked them. As you have heard, he made a profound impact on a lot of those kids over the years at Bateman, and those are only the ones that I know about, and he also made a profound impact on the staff as well. Kevin, with me, always joked about being the grease monkey. We were in different parts of the school, and he was part of the lower echelon. Those are his words. And for a grease monkey, you may not know that he actually spoke passable French. He would come by to my room, and he would say in his very special accent, just let me see if I can get this right. Bonjour. La plume de ma tante est rouge. And I thought, wow, you know, he was my poster boy. Because if Mr. Lloyd can speak French, anyone can. And as you all know, he had a very quick wit and a biting sense of humor. He was constantly looking for the next prank opportunity and always taking advantage of the silly things that go around us in school, and he always was trying to make a great joke. And I'm not the devious type, but Kevin would often include me in the planning process. And yes, there was a planning process. These pranks required careful thought and manipulation. And he made me feel like one of the cool kids in the school. Of course, there were a few people who seemed to paint bigger targets on themselves, and it made it impossible for him to pass up an opening for a good spontaneous wind-up. That said, he was also very sensitive to when people needed a joke to bring them up and not tear them down. More than once, he caught my vibe just passing me in the hall, and he would invariably show up later that day to make sure that I was okay. And he would offer help and support to get me through whatever was pulling me down. And I hear today that I was not alone in the fact that he also offered me vending machine money. I didn't know this about him. He was always at the ready to help a friend or a colleague in crisis. His care and concern were genuine and sincere. And although he really sucked at letting others know what he needed for support, he was always there for us. Every once in a while, he went my ear, and I felt profoundly special to know that I was trusted enough to get a glimpse of the real man, even if all I ever did was listen. For a man with such simple needs, Kevin, as you know, was incredibly complex. For me, he was an enigma. He was gruff and soft. He was funny and serious. He was straightforward and subtle, loving and loved, never forgotten, always missed.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm going to bypass some of the notes that I was going to read. A lot of what I have here is also on Facebook, and just I'm aware of the time. Suffice to say that there was a concern when we started the Facebook page. Students are involved. What are they going to say? And I said, I don't think we need to worry about that. I think that you will see the level of respect. And I'd also like to add to that, the Bateman family, I retired, I don't work there anymore, but it still means so much to me personally. When Kevin passed on Friday, I had 2 students phone me and say, how are you doing? One of them's over there playing guitar. So I said, hey, I'm doing great, you're going to be working for us. But that's the kind of thing that we saw at Bateman. We saw very special students working with special teachers and special gentlemen like Kevin, who, as his department head, I can tell you he often ignored the curriculum. Because it wasn't so much about learning how to fix a car, it was learning how to fix the person. And Kevin touched teaching is truly a very important profession. I miss it tremendously because the energy and the vibes you get off the kids when you throw a problem at them and you let them find the answers and let them chew at it for a while. And along the way you have fun with them and you build. Kids writing to Kevin about how, hey, you encouraged me to drop out of school. That school wasn't where I should be. I should drop out of school. And Chris writes saying that now he's earning $90,000 plus a year, this high school dropout, because Kevin basically said, get out of here. Kevin told it like it was. Kevin always took the time to talk to everybody, to listen to everybody. But he always looked at the person for who they were, who he or she was. It wasn't about the mark you got in automotive, and that's why, as we've set up the Kevin Lloyd Memorial Scholarship, the criteria for that will not be based on marks. The people who win that award will be people who demonstrate the characteristics of Kevin Lloyd. The young students who listen to each other and talk and help. And we'll talk a little about that as time permits in a second. But let's talk about the students. First of all, I want to introduce one student, first of all, with the message that she sent, and I have her permission. So this letter came to us, and Rachel writes, I don't think I will ever get used to calling you Kevin. You might notice my last name is no longer Gabrielson. On April 22nd, 2015, I got married to the love of my life. I attached a photo, so hopefully it works. She meant the attachment. We asked Rachel, one of the reasons we think that Rachel probably was special is Karen found this when she was cleaning up. And this is a beautiful little handmade card that Rachel gave to Kevin when she graduated. So I'm not going to talk about the card, we're going to talk about Rachel, because she flew in from Calgary to be here today. So Rachel, do you want to come up?
Hello everyone. Public speaking is not my forte, so I'm going to do my best to keep it short and try not to cry. So I'm Rachel. I was one of Mr. Lloyd's students. I work for Bateman. I first met Mr. Lloyd in '98. I kind of sauntered into his classroom because I heard that's where all the cool kids go. And I was like, I would like to be in your class. So he told me to apply. I applied, but it was a pretty popular class and I didn't get it. So I was pretty disappointed. So I entered into his class and he could tell I was pretty upset about it. He said, apply again next year, I'll make sure you get it. So I applied, and then the next year I was in his power and energy class and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. So looking back, I remember Mr. Lloyd's presence and how he was able to captivate his entire class with his wit, humor, or embarrass people that weren't paying attention. So he treated us not just like students, but like we were people. And his classroom just wasn't a learning environment, but it was a sanctuary for most of us, especially with our teenage craziness that we were going through. I remember feeling upset some days in his class, and he would tell you to go and sit in his office, and you'd go and sit in that really ugly brown shirt that he had in there. And you had to be careful not to lean too far back or get too comfortable, because you'd almost tip over in it. But he'd sit you down, he'd ask you what's going on, and he would be so genuine and want to know what's going on, and he'd want to help you out. His kindness wasn't taken advantage of either. We all knew that in his class, he expected us to work hard, and he wanted us to succeed. So one of the curriculum was welding. I was terrified to learn how to welding. I learned how to weld, I think it was sparks scared me for some reason. So I asked one of the other guys, I was like, can you do this for me? I don't want to do it. So Mr. Lloyd saw right through me, and I got in a bit of trouble, and then he made me do it. So I found out that I actually really loved welding, and I was mildly decent at it. But I also learned not to give up on myself before I actually tried doing something. I also learned from Kevin that real men like pink. As the vending machine issue continues, he would go into the hall, sneak away, and he would go and grab his Starbursts. But he would always offer students some of the candy that he brought back. I remember one day he offered one of the male students a pink Starburst, and the kid made some sort of snarky remark about the color. All Mr. Lloyd said was, real men like pink, and he walked away. So to this day, every time I see Starbursts, I still think of Kevin. Kevin was a phenomenal mentor, and he made an impact on so many lives, whether he knew it or not. And I know I'll never forget the compassion and dedication to the lessons that I learned from him.
Mr. Dan Smale, are you here? Yep. There we are. Dan is one of the very unique, come on up here for a second, Dan. Dan is one of the unique students because he got to see the pride of Kevin. Dan was such a special student that he got hired to do some work in Kevin's house, and so as a result, he was one of the very few people who got to see home Kevin and school Kevin. And so he's in a special place to talk about a great man.
Yes, I got the unique opportunity to meet Kevin at home and learn about what his home life was like and everything like that. He was a fantastic man through and through. I think, though, I'm going to talk a little bit about what it was like being a student of Mr. Lloyd's. Sorry, I've been racking my brain of what I wanted to say today for over weeks. But the big thing that I wanted to say was Kevin was able to teach many of his students things that you don't learn in school on a regular basis. And the biggest thing that I wanted to say was something that Kevin said to a lot of us in his class that were maybe not following the rules and stuff like that. And that was, look, Dan, I've got 2 guys upstairs waiting for a course change. I'll ship you up there right now. And I know we've all heard that from him. Never wants to be shipped up to that office. Thanks a lot, Mr. Lloyd. I love you and I miss you.
So there's apparently something that we, the upper, older folks, probably don't understand here. And I'm going to try and fill in the blanks of what I've gathered from other people. So apparently there's something called Wildcat Wednesday. Now, I don't know anything about Wildcat Wednesday, but apparently Wednesday night a bunch of guys get together in the tennis court and they drink Wildcat beer. Apparently this is Kevin's favorite beer. Not true. That was one of Kevin's pranks. He didn't really like Wildcat apparently. But apparently if you go over to Jonesy's place, this is the cheapest crap you'll get from him. Now, is John or Noah? Noah Cameron? Or John? Okay, come on up. Why don't both of you come up? So a couple of weeks ago, when we were asking young folks if they'd send a letter or a message that I would read to Kevin, I was driving home on Friday night and I said, Paul was coming into town because Paul, bless his heart, he was down in Arizona. He flew up and he just dived in the last week there, and you wouldn't believe what Paul did. But I was thinking, I wonder, Kevin said to me one time, the three of us should have a beer. And so as I'm driving home, I said to myself, I'm going to buy a case of beer. And I'm going to go and we're going to have on Sunday, we're going to have a beer with Kevin. Paul, Kevin and I would have a beer and anybody else in the family who was there. Well, then I picked up the daily supplies from the school, and these guys had bought a case of beer. And they said, well, Lloyd said we'd always have a Wildcat with you afterwards. So I said, perfect, I get to drink their beer. So we hijacked your case of beer. Don't open it. And that's the sixth one out of the ring. So we were going to, because these guys wanted to have a beer with Kevin. So then we got thinking, I would get ready to open it. And both of you, sorry, your name is, you're Noah and you're John. You're looking very, very dressed up. Is Vanna here today? Speaking of dressed up, Vanna White, are you here today? Come on, Melissa. She wore white all the time, so Kevin called her Vanna White, so she wouldn't get dirty. But I digress. So the Wildcat started the gears turning, and what we are going to do here is, thanks to the sponsorship of some grads, so guys like Mr. Chubb and Mr. Doy and the Lally family and a few other people, it's not fun just to sit here and watch John and Cameron share a Wildcat between them. So we talked to a couple of the grads, and we're just going to get the staff. We've got a Wildcat for everybody here. Do not open it, please. When you get your Wildcat, or there's also some soft drinks for those of you who don't want a beer, and the staff are just bringing them in right now, so we're going to bring in the tables. We didn't know how many people to have, so there's only 300, so if you don't get one, you'll have to get sweetheart straws. So, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take a 5-minute break here, and we're just going to, if you want to you guys go now. Yeah. Don't pay any attention to somebody's just sneaking out of the room quietly. So, what we'll do is they're just going to disappear for a second, that's fine. Everything has to have a secret. So what I would like you to do is, as the best Kevin cooperation you can demonstrate, here's the problem. We got beer and soft drink on this table. I think, is that all of it? There must be more. So if you could start, people in the middle, grab a can and pass it down the road. Do not open it, everybody, because Kevin needs that impact of all 350 cans being open at the same time. Nobody shake anything as you're passing it down.
Is that it?
Did you get a Pepsi? Pepsi? You have a Pepsi? No? Let's get a Pepsi. All right, hang on, folks. We have more coming. We have another table at the far end, so we're going to get all of that. We're going to flow all the way down. As I say, this is the participation part. Get up a little bit and stretch a little bit. We're getting close to the end. If you haven't yet bought a beer, are there any more beer down there?
Everybody got a beer that needs it?
We need one for Karen. We need a beer. I need 2 beers spare, please. Karen and Patrick didn't get one. Thank you, sir. Here we got some. Karen's got her own. Go back to
You gotta have one beer. Come on, I know you.
Okay, who needs a beer? We have beer to spare here. Oh, got some more down there. Do not shake. We have more here. Everybody have one? This is good. We have spare, that's awesome. Okay, so we only have one shot on this. So if you have your cameras rolling, roll your cameras. So I guess we should do it like on the count of 3, but if I don't say 3, don't pull it. So if I go 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to ask you to raise your can of Wildcat in toast to Mr. Kevin Lloyd. Now you have to drink it all. I apologize for your insights. All right. So now you have a refreshment to sit there quietly. Quietly. That's better. Good. Good. Quietly. I know you got liquor in your hands and you're all excited. Now don't drink it all fast. This is not a shotgun event where you're going to try and down that glass as fast as possible because you see some empty beer sitting around. That's not what we're all about. We're not going to, oh, good. Karen, put it back. Remember, any that's left over, well, we'll all drink it in the next little while. Because we can't take the beer home because it belongs to this building. It stays here. So thank you for the sponsors of this event, and also thank you everybody for participating in the Wildcat event. So if this was Wednesday and it was night, you were all part of a Wildcat Wednesday, when you finish with your bottle or your can, crunch it up, throw it on the floor. Don't do it, because we're not in the tennis court. Perhaps somebody in the student population who actually knows the legend of Wildcat Wednesday could explain it to me, because I don't work for the school district, and that would be really kind of fun. Okay, so now all I have to do is read some notices to you. No, I'm not going to. A lot of what I have here is obviously, sorry? One? Yeah. Which one? I know.
Oh.
I don't want to really do that one quite yet, because I haven't got it from me. I was wanting to read, I mean, so much of what I could read has been said or you know. I mean, it's comments like this one. It was always funny to see you deal with the victims. Too clueless, performed simplest of tasks, and how stupid some of them were. There wasn't any more to do but laugh, often resulting in you saying, "Here, grab a broom." You know, the idea that Kevin was a prankster, the idea that Kevin was obviously an amazing father and leader and father figure to so many people in this room, males and females alike. I mean, when I read the letters, it was so, I mean, guys, you're awesome. So many guys could actually express emotion. Some of you had trouble with that. And some of you had a real hard time with spelling. Chris did an amazing job. He sent about it was, if I hold up, it means nothing, but it was like twice this much down on his phone. It was all one sentence and every word was spelled wrong. But he's making $90,000 a year. Thank you very much. Who cares about this trouble? What we want to do is we want you to spend the next bit of time, not in this one room. We have the entire facility. There are tables set up. There's food coming out. We want you to visit with each other. You haven't seen each other for a long time. These things tend to become reunions, which is always the worst reason to getting together for a reunion. But of all the things that we've heard Kevin talk about, that Kevin was known for, his pranks, his deep love of listening to people, one thing that one of the people on our team said, you know, this thing about Jolly Ranchers, Starbursts, that seems to mean something. And so what the family's going to do we have Jolly Ranchers. We have Jolly Ranchers. So rather than having a memento that you take home and put in your drawer and you pull it out 5 years from now and say, oh, I remember that. I remember that man. I remember that ceremony. I remember that celebration. We want you to have those memories, and you're going to have those because you know Kevin, and that's just part of your fabric. But what we really would like you to do is do not leave today without getting one of the Jolly Ranchers from a family member. These are not for you to take home and eat. These are for you to use as Kevin would use Jolly Ranchers. I want to challenge everybody here to use the package of Jolly Ranchers you get today to sit down with somebody and listen. See if you can help them. See if you can open a door for them. See if you can give them some sage advice, no matter how old or how young you are, that might help them, on a different direction. It takes a lot for a teacher to ask a student to drop out of school, because that's where you will see success. And all of the young faces here today, and all the young faces who are under the age of 100, we still have lots and lots of great things to happen. Our world is a crazy place right now. We need a lot of people being really supportive of each other, really understanding and talking to each other, but most importantly, listening. Because that's what Kevin did. Every time somebody made something go wrong, he'd send them to the vending machine, he'd pull out a Starburst, he'd sit down in his office, he'd have a candy. And the candy was just the opening to the conversation. So I think there's probably about 10 or 12 candies in here, so that should be a couple months worth of conversations. Because these aren't the conversations where you just flip one of these and say, here, have a candy. Have a conversation. I was at the bank yesterday, and I made a comment that I was going to be at a celebration of life. And the bank teller said to me, is this for the teacher at Bateman? I have no idea how she knew my connection, but somehow she knew. And so I reached in my pocket and I pulled out a package of Jolly Ranchers because I had some to spare. And I said, what you need to know is the teacher at Bateman talk to people and listen to people over candy. And she said, thank you. I'm going to do that with my next customer. So please, make sure you get a Jolly Rancher. Make sure you have a chance to visit with these wonderful people who've lost such an important person in their lives. One of the statements that I've made to Karen and to her family is that it takes a village to raise a family, and it takes a village to take care of the family after the person may not be around. The Facebook group, do not take your name out of the Facebook group, because every time we need anything for the Lloyd family, there will be an event pinged out in the Facebook group. We already know about a spring cleanup coming in the fall, because we want to get in there and take care of all those tassels. Kevin did an amazing job, did almost everything off the task list, but there's a couple things. There's a set of blinds that need some fixing, and stuff like that. You know, the extended family we have here, and I'm making Karen cry right now, but Karen doesn't always believe that that we owe so much to Kevin. So many people in this room have careers, are alive, because Kevin told them to make the right decision and do the right thing, as they found it in their own. And I think we can all find it in our hearts, for the next 50 some odd years, that whenever Karen needs anything, or Patrick, well, I know Katie wants somebody to pay her tuition. So if anybody wants to cover her tuition, that's cool too. But it's about the actions we take to support this family and other families we know who are in similar situations. Because this is becoming a bigger challenge to all of us everywhere in the world. We need to take care of each other. We need to do a better job of taking care of each other. And so I challenge you to be Kevin Lloyd and sit down with a Jolly Rancher and have a conversation. So, Patrick, Katie, and Karen, I have 500 packages of Jolly Ranchers. So, as I say, you know, if they're busy, because I know they want to talk to everybody, and there's just not going to be enough time for all of that, they're going to do their best. They're going to go and hide now for a little while. Sorry. And hang on, I have one more letter to read. I have to find it. Okay, I will find it here. It should be in this pile. It's in the student pile. Why am I not? So,
I'll let you find it, and I'll speak on. I want to say something on this board.
Please do.
Well, if you've already found your letter, then go ahead. I just didn't know if you were actually going to take forever to do it, or you never know with these guys, these teachers. They tell you one day, they do something completely different. Hours later, but no, my apologies. I'll let you get to this. So, I'd be Mr. Reddy from the grad 98 class. I had a remarkable time in Mr. Lloyd's class in so many ways, and he was the type of man that not only is he respectful, he was the type of guy that he was the big hard shell. He was the hard man, but down deep, soft. He was gentle. He would take you aside, and I had many opportunities to blow his steam. I was the guy that really got him jacked up in a lot of ways, and I spent a lot of time in the hallway, in his classroom, in his chair, you name it. And there was a lot of moments in these times where his personality would come out and he'd be frustrated. He'd be really mad. But the one thing I always remember about that guy, and I respect him to this day, he would literally take you aside and say, "Don't sweat it. Don't worry about it. It is what it is." And I remember that very briefly because I was in his mechanics class, but I tell you, I didn't know jack about mechanics. I was more about tricking out vehicles and putting stereo systems in and just pimping rides. That was more my thing. We used to change oil changes in other teacher vehicles. Yeah, not my forte. My little bit of humility, I actually put transmission fluid into the engine oil. Yeah, that was an experience like there was no tomorrow. As soon as Mr. Lloyd heard that, he's like, "Mr. Reddy, hallway now." I never stopped ever hearing about that moment. I can't remember whose teacher's car it was, but all I know is it did a number on the engine, obviously. But in that moment where he was so frustrated, he was so raged, and it took a real good person to get him that jacked up. You know, not too often you can see that red face just go, and he just wants to lose it. He just wants to pull it loose on you. And you know what? And this is why I respect a man like this. You know, heaven he's gone, but he'll definitely live in stories that we tell and everything. He kept his cool. And that's a true man. A true man is dealt with serious obstacles and frustrations from, you name it, from anybody, you know, and I gave him a lot. He kept his cool. And he did the coolest thing ever. Put his arm around you and said, "Hey, don't sweat it, don't worry about it, it's just freaking oil. The shit will be done. Don't worry, it's cool." And in that moment where you felt so humiliated, you felt so ridiculed, you felt like the biggest loser on the planet, he made you feel like a millionaire. He made you feel like, "Hey, you're still a cool guy. Don't worry about it, don't sweat it." And you know what? That right there, is the pure wisdom and strength of Mr. Lloyd, and that guy will live on in those moments forever. So thank you for that.
Great, thank you, Sean. Are there anybody else who would like to take the mic before we read the last? Did I hear
I was one of the victims of the brass magnet. When we were in grade 8, we had this cycle. We had to go through classes for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it was. And I was in Mr. Lloyd's class for about 2 weeks. The brass magnet thing happened. And that's when I realized he never did give up on a student. That's absolutely true. He never did. He just, in my case, introduced you to Mr. Henderson. So maybe this is more your thing. And then Mr. Henderson introduced me to Mr. Ward, and I play guitar. Coincidentally, if there's anyone that can help me with an oil change.
Good afternoon, my name is Stephen Rowell, and I had the privilege of teaching with Kevin for 20 years, but also carpooling with him. Because I live in Brookswood, and most of my students go, you drive all that way every day? See Mount Baker, and that's great. Kevin always shared a lot of jokes and during those times. Patrick probably doesn't know this, but Kevin was really good. My daughter Emily went to school with Patrick, and Gavin went with Katie. Kevin would come by and help pick Emily up at gymnastics. Oh, Emily, how was your day? And Emily, and what'd you guys do in school? Any homework? Patrick knew nothing. Patrick would sit up almost 3 times a week. Because Kevin would come with me, and he'd always go, so Emily, how's school? Any homework? Yeah, well, the math is very difficult. It's probably take about half an hour, Mr. Lloyd. And Emily would be so honest. And the next day, how was Patrick's homework go? He didn't do anything. So, I'm sorry, my friend, she had you, and your dad manipulated it to get the bus to you. Yeah, the total burn. Oh, years of burning. Then grade 8 got better, and as you guys did different courses, but your elementary days, I'm sorry. Yeah, she had you. So as we know, Kevin is a prankster, and Mr. Sarawak, our principal, is there current. When did we do Born to Be Wild? What year was that? The lip sync, Born to Be Wild?
4 years ago.
So 4 years ago, okay, I'm getting older, so I guess 2012. So for the younger group, 2012, we did a lip sync at a pep rally called Born to Be Wild. Well, I like to disguise myself sometimes, so I had contacts on, and our drama department, so Ms. Fernandez gave me this massive wig, going way down here. I've never had hair like that in my life. It was brilliant. And that day I wore Under Armour shoes. Does that mean anything to the family, Under Armour? Kevin wore Under Armour runners almost all the time in shop. So what happened was we had the RCMP come in on a big chopper, big Harley, and they rode in. We had brought in with the kids, they gave us some pocket rockets. And we zipped into the gym. And we start Born to Be Wild. And it's all going fun as it always does. And afterwards in the afternoon, clean the gym up, and my students start talking about, wasn't Mr. Lloyd awesome on stage? And I'm going, Mr. Lloyd, that was me. But I'm okay with that because I never wanted to go battle with him with pranks because I was usually on the plan like Madam Calder and Nicole was. So I was okay. And so I said, you guys thought Mr. Lloyd was great? You gotta see him in his other acts, he's really good. So I walked down to go, Kevin, you were a star on the stage. What do you mean? What do you mean? Because sometimes when the prank came back, he wasn't so keen. So I kept the story going for a few weeks in class, going, Born to be Wild, that was the best one we've ever done. And he go, oh yeah, and Mr. Lloyd was so good. Oh yeah, you guys tell him in class. The kids go down to the class shop to you, Mr. Lloyd, you rocked it out. You look really good as Born to be Wild. And so, yeah, so I never wanted to prank against him, but it fell into my lap, so I had to use it.
I was a student of Mr. Lloyd's for 4 years, and I think one of the best memories I had in his class was we were sitting in his office, and for anybody who knows Mr. Faulkner, he's not a very technologically... he's not a friend of technology. Yeah, say that, Mr. Lloyd. There he is. And so, we're sitting in there, and he was, of course, planning his next greatest prank, and on his computer he has a Shakespeare play open, and on the top he writes Ms. Fernandez's name, and since we have in the school we have all the printers set up on a network, he sends it to Mr. Faulkner's printer in the middle of class, and so this is like 50-page long play, and we're just sitting there in the office just waiting, and we're sitting there in the chair, and all of a sudden we just hear Mr. Faulkner walking down, Ms. Fernandez screaming at Ms. Fernandez. That was just one of the points and moments where it was just, you really saw what a great man.
Well, we could go on for hours telling some amazing stories, but you know what, let's do that individually. So I'm just going to wrap up with one last letter that we received when we were reading letters to Kevin. I'll just summarize the first part. This comes from a gentleman by the name of Trevor. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Sorry. Yeah. Agassiz. So Trevor writes this letter from Italy because he heard about this in Italy, and he's over there on holidays. And read the whole letter? Okay. With everything that's going on in the world, I've been angrily scrolling through Facebook for the past few days and came across this. Thanks for sharing, Samantha Guy. This post I just read makes me incredibly sad. Mr. Lloyd, L-L-Y-O-D, was my mechanics teacher for all the time I spent in Bateman. Now, as many of you may know, an A student I was not, nor a B student. Well, I was more like an auditor of classes at the best of times. For 1 year, I actually dropped out completely to try correspondence learning, but I kept one class, mechanics. For 1 hour a day, I would actually choose to go to school. I may not have been on time, ever, which led Lloyd to believe I was just a visitor. But I was always excited to go. He was one of the only teachers I let call me Trev. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life at that point. Mr. Lloyd had the advice of trades. He told me stories of kids like me growing up to be the best paid men at the reunions. I now hold not but one but two trade diplomas. Our class was full of, let's say, auditors. And Lloyd loved us all. He treated us like men, with respect. Never treated us like students, but more like co-workers. If you were to measure his impact on me by the grades he gave, it wouldn't mean much. But for the life lessons he taught me, they're immeasurable. He was the first person to teach me how to change a flat. That's a big thing for a young man. He might as well have given me my first beer. I thank you, Mr. Lloyd. You were the most important teacher in my school career. I'm writing this from Florence, Italy, a place where I wouldn't be without my well-paying trades jobs, which I wouldn't be working without your advice. Michael Neufeld may remember the last words he said to us on our last day at Bateman, and I'll let you all in on a little moment that I remember so fondly. Lloyd never swore in front of us, no matter how much we did. His last handshake at grad, he pulled us in close and whispered, "It's been a pleasure, boys. Now fuck off." I still laugh about it to this day. I hope that if there is anyone who can get this to where it needs to go, please do so. You have all my best wishes to your family, Mr. Lloyd. If I can find a can of Wildcat over here, you'll bet I'm raising in your honor. You have never been forgotten, and you never will be. Now fuck off. Thank you all very much for coming, ladies and gentlemen. The family thanks you. Sorry, we have one more interloper. Oh, could we have every one of Kevin's students to stand, please? That is phenomenal. The only time you get a reunion that goes across the grades, it's not grade-based, it's teacher-based, and what a wonderful reunion we have here today. So please celebrate each other's value to each other, the value to the people around you. Make sure you get a Jolly Rancher because we've got some good conversations to kick off with some people out there. Well, a reminder, the Kevin Lloyd Memorial Scholarship Fund and the guest book. So the guest book is outside. Please sign it before you leave. Memorial Scholarship Fund, if you want a donation, there's some forms out there, or you can do it online. There's information out there as well. There's some more beers here, so you can grab yourself a beer. Remember, the beer is not to leave the ground, so don't put 6 packs in your backpack for Monday morning. That includes you two, Faulkner. And just to put one rumor at rest, the only time there was ever beer in the auto shop. Oh, we won't finish that one off. Okay, have a great time. Thank you.
We get this out of the way.